Hi there. Drop in the comments where you're listening from. It's always amazing to see how many places around the world you're all joining from. Thanksgiving with the Ames family was always an event, but that year it felt like a setup. White linen tablecloths, crystal glasses, a roast big enough to feed 20 people. I wore jeans and a button-up. Everyone else looked like they were headed to a church directory photo shoot. Talia kept her maiden name, Ames, and in this house, that still meant something. Her dad, Gerald, sat at the head, king of the table. Next to him, Valerie, his wife, clinked glasses and smiled like she rehearsed it. Noelle, Talia's sister, had her perfect curls and a sweater that probably cost more than my truck's tires. Her husband, Brett, acted like this was his boardroom. Talia's brother, Darren, showed up with Maya, who was 7 months pregnant and quiet as a mouse. We'd just filled our plates. I was 3 bites into some over-seasoned sweet potatoes when Gerald set his fork down. For everyone's protection, he said, "You should add our names to your deed." I blinked. Thought maybe he meant Talia. Our, as in her and me. He didn't. I bought my place, a brick bungalow on Milwaukee's south side, years before I met Talia. Paid the down payment myself, fixed the roof, replaced the front door with my own 2 hands. Gerald leaned forward. "You're married now. That changes how assets ought to be handled." Valerie clicked her wine glass on the table like she was sentencing me. "What if something happens to you? There should be a safety net." I turned to Talia. She didn't say a word, just moved her stuffing around with her fork like she was checking the weather in it. Noelle gave me this syrupy voice. "Is it worth maybe $315, $320 now?" "What exactly are you asking for?" I said. Valerie smiled. "Joint holding. That way the family isn't exposed." "Why would the family be exposed by a house I own?" I said. Silence. Forks froze. Gerald's jaw locked up like he was chewing nails. Brett muttered, "If you're not willing to share something this important, maybe you're planning an exit." Talia finally spoke, real quiet. "It's his house." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. Darren and Maya, dead quiet. Like if they didn't move, no one would notice they were there. I asked one more thing. "What happens if Talia and I split?" Valerie gasped like I'd yelled in a chapel. "That's insulting," she said. "No," I said. "This? Right here? A bunch of people cornering me with paperwork talk over turkey? This is the insulting part." Then I shut my mouth and finished my meal in silence. Every fork scrape, every cough, felt like someone jabbing me in the ribs. The ride home took exactly 20 minutes. No music, no talking. Just the low whir of the heater blowing dusty air, and Talia staring out the window like the trees might explain something I couldn't. When we pulled into the driveway, she sat for a second before unbuckling. "You could have handled it better," she said, like I'd knocked over a vase instead of dodging a financial ambush over mashed potatoes. I kept my hands on the wheel. "You mean I shouldn't have asked why your entire family wants access to something I built by myself? They're just worried about our future," she said. Not mad, just tired sounding, like she'd rehearsed that answer in her head. I looked at the porch light I installed last summer when the old one shorted out. The chipped step I still needed to fix. The stubborn storm door I rehung 3 times because it wouldn't shut right. I'd poured years into this place. Sweat, scraped knuckles, secondhand tools. And now I was being told it wasn't protected unless I handed it over. I shut off the ignition. "I'm not signing anything blind." "They just meant secondary holding," she said, voice dropping. "In case of emergencies." That phrase, secondary holding, hit me wrong. Sounded like something you hear from a guy trying to upsell you on a bad warranty. I turned to her. "That's not a legal term people use. That's a pitch." Talia didn't argue, didn't defend it. She just sat there, picking at the edge of her coat sleeve. "I think they're scared," she said, so soft I almost missed it. "My dad's not good at showing it, but that's where it comes from." "I'm calling someone who actually understands deeds," I said. "Because no offense, but dinner table lawyers with full wine glasses don't get to rewrite my mortgage." She looked over at me, surprised, but not upset. "So, not a no? Not a yes either." She reached across the console and pressed her thumb against the side of my hand. Just a second, a tiny, unsure kind of touch, like she was silently asking if this was about her too, or just them. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. Inside the house, I went straight to the hall closet where I kept the important stuff. Pulled the folder with my closing docs, title insurance, mortgage payoff letter. I stacked it on the coffee table like ammo. If they wanted a meeting, they were going to get facts. Then I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Paula Green's number, the realtor who had gone to bat for me 6 years ago when I was a broke guy with good credit and no clue. I texted her, "Can you talk tonight? Deed question." She replied in under 2 minutes. "Call me at 9. I looked over at Talia, who was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, arms folded, lips pressed tight. "I'll set a family meeting once I understand what they're actually asking for," I told her. She nodded like that meant I was finally seeing reason. Like I'd just agreed to the compromise they were all hoping for. I didn't correct her. At exactly 9, Paula picked up on the first ring. Same sharp voice I remembered. No small talk, no filler, just business. "Talk to me," she said. "My in-laws are trying to get secondary holder status on my deed," I told her. "For protection," they said. "It's been building for about 7 months." She didn't hesitate. "Did they say joint tenants or tenants in common?" "Nope," I said. "Just that secondary line like it's some kind of backup plan." Paula snorted. "That's not a real thing. Sounds like a smokescreen." I started pacing in front of the coffee table. "So, what happens if I actually add someone to the deed?" "They become a legal co-owner," she said. "That means they can file for a partition and force a sale, even if you don't agree." I stopped moving. "Wait, even if I say no? Even if I still live here?" "If they're on the deed," she said, "your say isn't the only say anymore." I felt that like a punch. My stomach went cold, then hot. "Okay, so what if they've got money problems?" "Then congratulations," Paula said, very dry. "Their creditors can go after your house. Liens attached to the property, not just your share, the property." I dropped into the armchair like someone had cut the strings off my knees. I pictured Valerie raising a glass, talking about family first, while quietly sinking my equity to plug a hole I didn't make. Paula wasn't done. "I've seen parents guilt their kids into adding them, then take out lines of credit against the home. Fast cash, easy approval when your name's on the deed." I rubbed the side of my face. "Is there a polite way to say absolutely not?" She gave a short laugh. "Forget polite. Plain facts work better than politeness." There was a pause. Then she asked, "You want me to pull public records? Just surface stuff. I can get a picture?" "Yeah," I said. "Gerald and Valerie Ames, Noel and Brett Kerr, Darren Ames." She was already typing. "I'll need spellings and birth years. Town helps too." I gave her everything I had, spelled out every name, gave the year each one was born, told her they all lived in or around Brookfield. She said it wouldn't take long. Nothing fancy, just enough to see the lay of the land. "Worst case," she added, "we do a sit-down. I explain everything in plain English. You sit there and nod, and they figure out someone who knows what they're doing is in the room. That usually kills the heat." "Appreciate it," I said, and meant it. We hung up, and I leaned forward, staring at the folder on the table. On top sat the mortgage payoff letter from 2 years ago, dated March 14th. I still remembered holding that envelope, reading that final number, knowing I was done. $316,000, paid off in 4 years. Every last dime, from long drives to factories and warehouses, selling industrial flooring to shift managers who barely looked up from their clipboards. I lived on turkey sandwiches and gas station coffee to get it done. Talia was asleep on the couch, blanket half falling off, her phone resting on her chest. She looked peaceful, like none of this was hanging over us. But it was. And I didn't know if I was protecting her from her family or protecting myself from the way she looked away when they spoke. I sat back, eyes on the ceiling, and told myself this wasn't a war yet, but it certainly wasn't a team huddle either. Paula called back 2 hours and 15 minutes later, and the second I heard her voice, I knew the answer wasn't going to be clean. She sounded flatter than earlier, like she'd switched from friendly help to damage control. "Sit down," she said. "I already am," I told her, but my shoulders still tensed like I was about to get hit. I kept my eyes on the folder on the coffee table, like staring at paperwork could stop bad news from landing. "Okay," Paula said, and I heard keys tapping in the background. "Gerald and Valerie filed Chapter 7 a little under 3 years ago. Discharge granted, it looks like they walked away from a failed home renovation venture with $241,800 in business debt. I didn't say anything. My mouth went dry, and the room felt too still. The heat kicked on and smelled like dust again, and it made the whole thing feel even dirtier. Paula kept going, calm and precise. Their current house is underwater by about $42,000, and they were late on taxes 1/4. My fingers curled around the edge of the armrest. I could picture Gerald at that table, acting like I was the one who didn't understand responsibility. Paula's tone didn't change. Noelle and Brett Kerr have a foreclosure notice posted 5 months ago on a condo in Waukesha. There are also 2 missed association assessments. I stared at the dark screen of my television and saw my own face reflected back, eyes wide and stupid-looking. I listened, but I didn't talk. All I could hear was my breathing, loud and uneven, like a bad mic picking up every flaw. And Darren, she said, has 2 civil judgments for credit cards totaling $38,700, plus a wage garnishment order from last spring. My throat tightened hard. Maya was pregnant, and Darren had been sitting there like a statue while his dad tried to turn my house into a floating life raft. Paula didn't soften it for me. If you add any of them to your deed, liens can land on your place. And if someone files for partition, you could be forced into a sale. That porch swing you built, you'll be selling it along with everything else. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them again because I didn't want to miss a word. So what do? Do not add anyone, she said. If you want, I'll explain this in front of them. It cuts the spin. I swallowed and asked the question that had been stuck in my chest all night. Could Talia really not know about any of this? Paula paused just long enough to make it hurt. Sometimes spouses are the last to know, she said. Sometimes they know and look away. When I hung up, I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. My mind jumped to Valerie's spa photos, Gerald's new truck, and Noelle's little speech last spring about needing help with wedding costs, said with that sweet smile like it was normal. Looking back, I should have caught the pattern. I didn't, and that part was on me. I unlocked my phone and typed with steady thumbs anyway. Saturday, 3 p.m. at my house. Paula will walk us through the paperwork. Then I hit send and watched the replies pop in, fast and cheerful, one after another. By Saturday at 3, my living room smelled like lemon oil. I'd wiped everything down twice. The couch I reupholstered myself faced the coffee table where I'd stacked the deed, insurance docs, and the payoff letter on top like a headline. The chairs were set. The air was tight. They started filing in 5 minutes early, which told me everything I needed to know about how they thought this was going to go. Gerald walked in like he owned the place already. Big smile, leather shoes squeaking, wearing a blazer nobody asked for. Valerie followed, holding a ribbon bottle of California sparkling wine, like we were celebrating something. Noelle showed up in a cream sweater that said "Grateful" in gold script, chewing gum and smiling like a brand ambassador. Brett gave Darren a nudge and said something low, and they both chuckled like they were walking into a poker night. Maya, visibly tired and pregnant, stood near the door, arms crossed, rubbing her belly like she wanted to be anywhere else. Talia sat beside me with her knees tight and her hands folded in her lap. She thought this was a peace offering. She thought I'd bent. She was wrong. Paula sat on the armchair with her laptop already humming. She wore her hair up, glasses on, zero makeup. The same energy she'd had when she got me through 3 bidding wars 6 years ago. "We'll begin with the basics," she said, no smile, no greeting. Title search, clean, no encumbrances, property owned solely by the buyer, taxes current to the day. Gerald rubbed his hands together like he was warming up for a speech. "Let's make it official then," he said, like this whole thing had been agreed on, and I was just here to sign where told. "Actually," I said, nodding at Paula, "we're going to start with what it means to add someone to a deed, real terms, real consequences." Paula turned the screen around so everyone could see it. My name alone at the top. Date of purchase, 6 years ago. Price, $316,000. Paid off 2 years ago, in full. She looked right at Gerald. When someone is added as a co-owner, they have legal rights to the property. That includes the ability to file for partition and force a sale. Valerie's smile cracked just enough to show strain. "We would never do anything reckless," she said. like that should have shut the whole thing down. Paula didn't flinch. Do any of the proposed co-owners have recent bankruptcies, civil judgments, tax issues, or foreclosure actions? Gerald leaned back, folding his arms. That's private, he said. Not when it endangers this property, Paula replied. Noelle rolled her eyes. You're turning a family talk into an interrogation. I kept my voice calm. I'm protecting my home. If this was really about safety, then say the specifics out loud, Brett muttered. Control issues, under his breath. I looked out the window at the porch I painted myself, the one they all passed to get inside. My jaw locked. I stopped myself from laughing. Talia touched my arm. I felt her fingers press light into my sleeve. Can we just hear it? She whispered. Her voice shook. Her eyes flicked from Paula to her parents, then to me. I nodded once because she needed that permission. But I kept my eyes on Gerald, on Valerie. I needed them to know this was still my house. Keep going, I told Paula. It wasn't a fight anymore. It was discovery. Paula clicked to a new tab, and the screen changed from my tidy property record to a plain, ugly list. It wasn't some spy stuff, no hacking. Just summaries pulled from public records, the exact kind of information you could find if you bothered to look and didn't mind what you found. She cleared her throat once. Gerald and Valerie Ames, she read, slow and flat. Chapter 7. Discharged 29 months ago. Negative home equity approximately $42,000. 3 late tax payments in the past 8 quarters. Valerie made a gasp that sounded practiced, like she'd seen it on a soap opera and decided it fit. Gerald didn't even look at the screen. He stared at my mantle like it owed him money, jaw tight, fingers flexing against his knee. Paula didn't pause to let anybody spin. Noelle and Brett Kerr, she continued. Foreclosure notice recorded 5 months ago. Association arrears. 2 missed mortgage payments earlier last year, cured with a short-term loan. Noelle's face went red all at once, from her collarbone up. Brett lifted his chin like he wanted to fight the air. Then his eyes dropped to the carpet like it had the answers. Paula clicked again. Darren Ames, she said. Judgments totaling $38,700. A garnishment order last April. Darren swallowed so hard I saw it in his throat. Maya rubbed her belly faster, staring at the floor, and I hated that she was stuck in the blast zone of this mess. Talia turned her head slowly from face to face, like she was trying to line up what she'd always believed with what she was hearing. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, and I could tell she was doing the math in real time. Gerald finally spoke, sharp and annoyed. That's not her business, he said, jerking his chin at Talia, and we're all getting back on track. Paula folded her hands on the table, calm like a nurse explaining a broken bone. If you were on this deed, your creditors could attach this address, she said. You could force a sale to extract a share. That's the reality. I turned to Talia because I needed her to see my face when I said nothing. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't paranoid. I'd brought someone in who did this for a living, and she just read the truth out loud. Talia's voice came out thin. Did you know? She asked her parents. Her eyes were wide, not crying yet, just stunned. Valerie leaned forward like she could charm her way out. We were trying to help you build stability, she said. We were thinking about emergencies in the future. By risking my house? I asked, and my voice stayed steady even though my hands wanted to shake. By dressing it up as protection? Darren finally lifted his head and tried to sound offended. It's not like we planned to do something shady, he said, pushing the words out like they were clean. You don't have to plan it, I shot back. One lean, and I'm on the hook. Talia stood up so fast her chair legs scraped the floor. She looked right at her parents, then at Noelle, then at Darren, like she couldn't decide who to hit first with the truth. You asked him to add you to the deed while hiding all this, she said. You put me in the middle and didn't tell me? Gerald's face hardened. He puffed up like he was about to lecture a teenager. Marriage is partnership, he barked. Real men share. I didn't argue with him. I just stared straight at him and held it there. He tried to stare back, but his eyes slid away after a couple seconds, and I watched the moment he realized he couldn't bully me in my own living room. Paula closed her laptop with a quiet click that sounded final. There's no safe version of what you're asking, she said. The answer is no. Nobody argued after that. They just sat there, faces blank, like someone had cut the power, and I reached forward and pulled the stack of documents closer to my side of the table. They left one by one, and each exit had its own little tantrum attached. Noelle went first, crying hard enough to blur her mascara, mumbling about how unfair it was while she hunted for her purse like it had vanished on purpose. Brett didn't say a single useful thing, just stared past me and walked out stiff, like he was too proud to admit he'd been caught. Darren followed with his jaw clenched, teeth grinding like he wanted to argue, but didn't have the guts with Paula still sitting there. Valerie lingered at the doorway and leveled her finger at me. "You humiliated this family," she said, voice shaking like she was the victim and I was the thief. Gerald didn't even look at Talia. He muttered, "Respect," under his breath, like it was a magic word that should have made me fold. Then he stepped out and shut the storm door a little too hard. When the door finally closed for real, the house went quiet. Not the awkward kind, the clean kind, like right after snow falls and everything outside stops moving. Paula gathered her things and gave me a short nod on her way out, professional to the end. I locked the front door behind her without making a show of it. Talia sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped so tight her knuckles went pale. "I didn't know," she said. I watched her face. No flinching when the numbers came out. No secret little smile, just shock and anger that looked real. "I believe you," I said, because I did. Her eyes went glossy, but the tears didn't fall. "I should have asked more questions," she said. "I should have pushed back sooner." She didn't try to excuse them. She didn't try to twist it into something softer. "Here's what's happening," I told her. "I'm getting a lawyer to draw up a post-nup. Clear language. The house stays separate property, period." She nodded once, fast, like she wanted something solid to hold on to. "And I'm changing the locks in the alarm codes," I added. "Not because I think they'll break in, but because I sleep better with clean lines." She swallowed and nodded again. "I'm going to start therapy," she said. "I need help sorting out loyalty versus truth." She looked at me like she was bracing for me to take it wrong. "I'll go with you if you want," I said, and I meant it. We agreed on one rule right then. Nobody came over again until there was a real apology that admitted what they tried to do. After she went to wash her face, I called Paula to thank her. She didn't soak it up. She just said, "Clarity costs less than regret," and hung up. I wrote it on a sticky note and slapped it on the inside cover of my folder. Then I picked up Valerie's ribboned bottle and carried it through the kitchen to the back door, setting it on the steps for recycling with a firm, final thud. Over the next 4 months, everything shook loose on its own. Nobody had to dig or investigate or stir the pot. All I had to do was stop handing them cover, and the mess crawled into the light by itself. A letter showed up from Gerald and Valerie, thick envelope, formal like they were sending a legal notice. I opened it at the kitchen counter with the same hand I used to sort junk mail, and the words hit me like a shove. Not an apology, not even a fake one. It was a demand that I apologize for public embarrassment, like I dragged them onto a stage instead of sitting in my own living room. I set the letter down, read it twice to make sure I wasn't missing some hidden accountability, and all I found was blame and pride. Then I fed the pages into the shredder and listened to the hum until there was nothing left but confetti. Noelle and Brett lost the condo. It didn't happen with fireworks, just a moving truck and a tight timeline. One afternoon it was there. Next afternoon the truck was gone, and the place looked hollow. Talia watched from our front window when she heard the news, stare locked, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her ribs in place. I didn't touch her or try to talk her out of it. I just stood nearby and kept the house calm. Darren filed Chapter 13, and the way he announced it made my skin crawl. He texted Talia a message that said he was handling it, and added a thumbs up like he'd won a prize. Talia showed me the screen, jaw clenched, and said, "He really thinks this is normal." I told her, "He thinks normal is whatever keeps him from feeling shame." We met with a lawyer in a plain office that smelled like coffee and toner. We signed a post-nup that spelled out, in plain language, what separate property meant in Wisconsin, and I kept a copy in the safe the second we got home. No more gray areas, no more family protection talk that somehow turned into me bleeding out. Talia started therapy on Tuesdays at 6. The first 2 weeks, she asked me to drive, so I sat in the car outside with coffee and waited, watching people come and go and keeping my phone face down. When she got back in, she didn't spill every detail, but she breathed easier, and that mattered. We didn't talk to her parents, but we didn't block them either. Boundaries, not barricades. I rerouted my insurance and beneficiary details to match the post-nup, and every update felt like tightening bolts on a door frame. At night, we sat on the porch swing and talked about normal things: dinners, her book club drama, my route schedule for the week, and it finally felt like living again. Believe me, the quiet was its own kind of payback because they couldn't spin silence into a story that helped them. Before we went inside one night, I stepped off the porch, looked up, and flicked the porch light on, watching it shine steady like it should have all along. A neighbor from down the block stopped me one morning while I was trimming back the hydrangeas. He leaned on his rake, looked at me like he didn't want to dig but couldn't help it, and said, "How you two holding up?" I told him. Better, and I meant it. The fake part was done. The silence had shape now. Not emptiness, just peace. About a week later, I got invited to a backyard cookout at one of our mutual friends' places, someone who used to be tight with the Ames family. Gerald and Valerie usually held court at those things, hands on shoulders, handing out wine and unsolicited opinions like party favors. But this time, they weren't there. I showed up, brought buns, ate a brat, and played a couple of rounds of bags. Mid-game, someone cracked a joke. "Come on, man, don't be stingy." And it hit just sideways enough to poke the bear. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't grin either. I just said, calm and clear. Adding people with active judgments to your deed is not sharing. It's liability. Two people blinked. One guy nodded real slow, like he'd just learned something valuable and didn't want to admit he hadn't known it. I laid it out in 3 sentences, straight from Paula's playbook. No anger, just truth. That's the thing about facts. Once they're loose, they walk around without your help. Word traveled without me pushing it. I didn't have to defend myself, didn't have to clarify. People understood the math even if they didn't like the equation. I started volunteering once a month at a financial literacy night over at the free clinic near Highway 145. Simple stuff, explaining how deeds work, what a mortgage is, what the word partition actually means when it comes to property. No jargon, just real language for regular people. One night a kid asked, "Is it rude to say no to family?" And I looked him right in the eye and said, "No, it's responsible. Say it out loud and early. It's not rude to draw a line that keeps your home from becoming a battleground." Talia showed up after those sessions with coffee in each hand, and a wind-down playlist queued up for the drive home. One night she looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you." And the way she said it, steady, eyes full on mine, hit deeper than anything we'd exchanged in weeks. We hosted our own cookout not long after. Nothing fancy, paper plates, burgers, my old speaker rigged to the porch. Just friends who'd never asked for a cut of the house, never hinted around about access or emergencies. I grilled, she laughed, and not a single person brought up equity. The next day, Valerie texted Talia. "Family should forgive. Still no ownership. Still no acknowledgement." Talia read it once, typed back, "Family should be honest," and set her phone down. No follow-up, no need. That night, I updated the safe. New copies of the post-nup. Updated insurance forms, all the backups in order. When I spun the dial and heard the lock click into place, it sounded like a full sentence with a period at the end. It's funny how a front door can start to mean more than lumber and stain. I look at mine most mornings now before I leave. The grain runs vertical. The deadbolt clicks solid. I hung it myself. First winter in the house, when the old one swelled from rain and wouldn't shut right. I bought this place 6 years ago, after more miles on the road than I care to count. Cold calls, sales meetings, warehouse docks, and managers who never looked up from their clipboards. I pitched flooring so many times I could explain polymers in my sleep. I slept in motels with bad cable. Ate dinner out of gas station coolers. Still, I saved enough. I signed the papers. I brought the keys home. I paid it off 2 years ago. One brown bag lunch at a time. No help, no shortcuts. Talia wasn't in the picture yet. She is now. She's my wife, and that was my choice. Not a favor, not a merger, a choice. Her family tried to dress up their need in words like safety and protection and future planning, like they were doing us a favor by reaching into something I built. But the numbers said different. The records told the real story. No disguise could change it. I used to think saying no made you cruel, that it meant you weren't generous or forgiving. But I've learned different. Saying no is what grown people do when a yes would cost everything. We drew the line, signed the papers, changed the locks, updated every record, and let the noise stay where it belonged, outside. That wasn't revenge, it was control. There's a difference. If there's any payback at all, it's this. The people who tried to treat me like an asset lost access to the only asset they wanted, and I didn't raise my voice once to do it. Talia and I still get invited to events where her parents might show. Sometimes we go, sometimes we don't. When we do, we don't escalate, we don't explain, we speak plain. And if someone so much as pulls on a boundary, we leave. Easy as that. No scene, no lecture, just a closed door behind us. Some families you're born into, some you build from the ground up, and some you hold at the distance they earned, no matter how loud they call your name. The house is still in my name, just mine. The marriage is in both our hands, and that's the only balance that matters. Every night when I get home, I take 1 second on the porch, just one. Then I open the front door and step over the threshold like a man who kept his word to himself. Quick question before you swipe. Did you ever have to say no to family to protect what's yours? If you have hype, tap it. Please subscribe and like. Comment your thoughts.